about resistance training. Today we're going to talk about muscle and we're going to talk about healthy aging. Why is it important? Okay, so I want us to really start thinking about muscle. And if you've been on a course with us before, you will have seen this because it's so important. I put it into every course. If you haven't, this is probably one of the most important things I'm going to do with you over the next few weeks. So this is basically what we do. We look at muscle as exercise scientists. We study it. We see what happens to it in response to training and so on. And what you're looking at there, just so that you can see it. So this is a scan. It's an MRI scan of your thigh, right? Now, so this happens to be a 40-year-old very trained person. They're a triathlete, which means that they train every day and they might train twice a day. So they're quite very well trained and they're 40. And so in the center, you can see the white little circle, and that is bone. It's the big long bone that goes down through your entire thigh. Okay, so your femur. So you put your hand on your thigh. It's the one that runs basically from your hip the whole way through to your knee. Okay, it's a big, large bone in the body. And around that, you can see what effectively looks like steak. And that's actually all the muscles that you can feel. So if you put your hands on your thighs again, at the front, you can squeeze and feel, and they're called your quads or your quadriceps. And at the back, your hamstrings. Okay, so that's all the kind of meaty muscle that we have. And the white stuff on the outside then is basically fat tissue. And if you can probably, maybe you can see my face, fat tissue is anything like here that we can pull away from muscle. Okay, so of course we're going to find loads, you know, backs of your arms, it's all over the body and it has very useful functions. But this is kind of the quantity you're looking at in a trained person. But what happens is with the aging process is we lose quite a bit of muscle per decade. So we'll start to lose up to a couple of kilos per decade after the 30. Okay. And then when we get to the age of 50, can you hear that echo? No. Just thank you. When you get to the age of 50, it accelerates, unfortunately. So this kind of middle age is a bit of a problem for us in terms of muscle. But if you are aging, and you're also very, very, very inactive, which means you sit a lot, or you don't do too much walking, or whatever it is. If you're quite inactive and quite sedentary, this actually speeds up the aging process. So if we take a look at the scan of a leg, okay, of an older person, so this person is 74 and they are very sedentary. And that means that they have been quite inactive for quite a long time. And if we look at the scan here now, we can see that there's obvious physical differences. So the muscle you can see has basically shrunk. It's quite small. And you can see that there's a lot of white stuff in and around it as well, which kind of shouldn't be there. It's fat tissue. And if you look at the outside, you can see that obviously the white stuff, which is the fat tissue, there's quite a lot of it. Now, this could be quite a lean person. It could be a small leg, but it just means for whatever size of leg there is, there's very low muscle and there's quite a lot of fat tissue. But from a practical perspective, what really you're looking at here is someone who's going to be quite frail. They're going to struggle to get out of a chair. Their balance is going to be poor. And it has a whole knock-on effect, like risk of falls and fractures, and it certainly impacts how you function in the day, how you move, your independence, your quality of life, your health, and all sorts of stuff, right? So that's effectively the aging process, just naturally what happens if we're very, very inactive. But it's a serious thing for us. But physical activity is something that's very powerful in this process. And this is a scan of an almost the same age, 70-year-old person who's very, very well trained. And they are a triathlete. So even in their 70s, they're actually swimming, they're running, they're cycling. And I know that's an extreme example for most of us, because most of us are not going to do that, and that's fine. But what I want to show you is that I suppose muscle contraction or exercise is a very, very powerful thing to slow down the aging process. And I don't want everybody to become triathletes, but what I want you to do something that takes you away from the middle picture. Anything will take you away from the middle picture, okay? And you're doing a very good thing by doing a course like this, because the type of exercise that we are going to get you to do basically will take you very far away from the middle picture, okay? So it's just so important, and it's modifiable. It's something that we can control how much we do of it, how often, and so on, okay? So really important. Right, so there are lots of issues with this sedentary behavior, and a word I want to start to introduce you today is called sarcopenia. You may or may not heard of it. It's kind of like the technical term for muscle wastage. And in Ireland and worldwide, we have massive problems with this at the moment. COVID is majorly responsible for massive problems here because of all of the cocooning and isolation, and we couldn't go out and we couldn't get out and about. And that had major problems for us, for our muscle, for our strength. And but it does a whole host of other things, unfortunately. So you will notice this. You will notice that you don't have strength and you don't have endurance, and your balance is off, and things that you do every day are going to be a lot harder. And in fact, you'll come to a point where you won't be able to do some of the things that you used to be able to do, which is obviously not a place we want to be. So the one thing that a big telltale sign is the sit to stand, and anyone who's been with us in the Monday and Tuesday sessions will have done the sit to stand test. Okay, so you'll know what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I will speak about it in a second. Okay, so hold that thought. But the sit to stand test is key for letting us know where we are in relation to this. Frailty is a problem, falls, fractures, breaks, but what you might not realize is this type of a situation is very conducive to things like cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and it's very much related to brain health. So frailty and dementia and frailty and Alzheimer's, all these things are really related. So if I could say to you to think about that, and one of the most powerful things that you can do is train and be active. I just want you to take it seriously, because I've spent the last 20 years working with heart disease, diabetes, dementia, Alzheimer's, everything. And if there's one thing that's modifiable, and this is all evidence-based, there's lots of research behind this, it's this. And now this is the track that you're on, which I'm delighted to say, okay? So we could talk about all the bad things, and I'm sure I've traumatized you sufficiently, but what I'd rather talk about is the good things. Okay. All right, so it's in red. We don't want to be in this situation, right? We certainly don't want to be in this situation as we get older, okay? I want everybody jumping over fences and having parties in our 70s and 80s, all right? Because it is a possibility for all of us. Right. Then, of course, physical activity. Very different picture. Muscle behaves beautifully. You have lovely, strong bones. Your fat mass is what it should be. Your cardiovascular health is great. Brain health, brilliant, lovely. And we've, as I said, loads of evidence for this. So just, you may take my word for it tonight in the interest of time. So this is what I want for everybody. This is called healthy functional aging, where you can do all the things that you want to do when you get into the later decades, and you don't have to be dependent on people, which is what I want for myself and everyone I know and love. And it is possible for everybody. It is never too late. Doesn't matter what age you are. I don't care how you move right now. If you think you have lots of aches and pains and clinical conditions and all sorts of stuff, it doesn't matter, because when you start doing this stuff, your body responds instantly, okay? So if you've done a session with us, you've already started this ball rolling, and you're going to have fantastic results over the next 12 weeks. Right, so we did this sit to stand test with people. If you've missed it, you can self-test, and then you can tell us your result, okay? So we asked you, if you remember, we asked you, if you have a look at the picture, to sit in a chair, stand up fully upright, and back down again. And basically, we asked you to do as many as you could in 60 seconds. And this is just the business in terms of a simple home-based test for health. We will do this again towards the end of the program. We will then tell you what's an appropriate score for your age. In other words, what would indicate good health for your age, okay? And we'll go through all of that with you. And what will happen if you stick with us is your score will improve. And it brings you all the benefits that we've just spoken about, okay? Simple test, takes 1 minute, tells you an awful lot, and that's why we have it in the course. Big message, it's never, ever, ever too late to improve, ever. Okay. Other tests, I don't want to spend too much time on them, but you can do push-up tests like we did in class. You'll be doing them again at the end of the program, and we'll also be talking to you about good scores and so on. And there's a host of other tests like plank tests and things like that. But, you know, when we're doing courses like this with a lot of people, it's just they're time dependent. So we've picked kind of the ones that give you a lot of information. And in this case, we did the push-up test with you and the sit to stand. But if there's anyone listening tonight who missed out, as I said, just let us know and we can get you sorted with a home-based online test. Okay. Just for 30 seconds, I have to do a special mention on the menopause. We currently have the first, probably one of the few in Ireland, menopause lifestyle courses has just started, because I have been looking at this issue for the last 20 years. Women have had nowhere to go. They have not had the help that they need and that they deserve. And to be honest, it really at this stage is just so upsetting, because they're getting the consequences of that as they age, and there is no need for half of it. So at the risk of sounding a little dramatic, we just can't tolerate this anymore. So we've designed the course and delighted to do it and can't wait to see how it goes. But just for today, if you're not on the menopause course, you need to know that menopause brings a big risk of osteoporosis and osteopenia. Okay, so once you hit the menopause, you lose estrogen and you basically start losing a lot of bone mass. Okay, so if you look at the picture here on the left, you have normal bone and you can see it's thick and it's strong and it's dense. And then beside that, you have osteoporosis, and it doesn't look like that. It's quite porous and it's weak and it's frail. So, you know, if you were to have a fall, the likelihood of a fracture is much higher. So unfortunately, this is a risk that we have very little control over. We're going to hit the menopause. So that's the reality. And that's why it's no surprise people in their 50s, 55, hitting 60, keep getting diagnosed with osteopenia and osteoporosis. So it's a serious thing. It has such a big impact on us in so many ways. So, which is why I want to mention it today. But what a lot of people don't know is strength training can really change this situation. So the stuff that you're going to be doing in class with us, like the squats and the lunges, and eventually we'll be asking you to bring water bottles to class and, you know, tins of beans, and we'll be getting you stronger and stronger as the weeks go on. But that resistance training, that action, when you say, for example, can you see me a bicep curl, right? If I'm doing an exercise like this and say I'm holding a water bottle, so there's a little bit of resistance. The muscle now is short, now it's long. So when you contract muscles, they go from short to long. And every time you contract them, they pull on your bones. And that stimulates bone growth. So if you're not doing those types of contractions, you don't get that stimulation. So for people who hit menopause and are severely, basically just leaking bone mass, resistance training is not an option anymore. It's essential. If you happen to have osteopenia or osteoporosis, you need to do this and it'll stop it from getting any worse. Okay, so that's just a little side note. And of course, the classes are going to take care of all of that for you. So it stops bone loss. It increases the strength and the amount of bone that you have. And so we know this is absolutely essential. I am shouting it from the rooftops, but unfortunately you won't hear this, it seems, in relation to menopause, but you will now. Okay, we also know that women aren't doing resistance training, so we're on a bit of a rampage, on a bit of a mission to fix that. 2 sessions a week is what's needed. Okay, right, lastly then, so how much resistance training should you do for your health? And we talk about this in relation to the FIT principles, which you'll hear me talk about this for the next few weeks, right? So F stands for frequency. So how many times a week should I do it? I stands for intensity. So how hard should it be? How difficult should it be? T stands for time. How long should my session be? And the other T stands for type. So what should it be? Okay, so let me take you through this now with one slide with resistance training. Right. So we all need to do 2 to 3 days per week. It doesn't matter what age we are. Everybody does. In terms of intensity, it only needs to be moderate. So we don't need to absolutely have ourselves strangled. And how you know it's moderate is if you can do the talk test. So when you're in class with us, if I'm beside you, you should be able to talk to me. Okay, so even when you're exercising. But if you're huffing and puffing and panting and gasping and under severe pressure, you are working way too hard. You do not need to do that. And in some cases, it may not be wise, depending on what condition you might have. So it only needs to be moderate, okay, in every session. That's a key message. So time, you need to do about 30 minutes twice a week, and of course we've that covered in your classes. Now if I'm getting a bit more prescriptive, you need to tackle all the major muscle groups in the body, which we do in your classes, and you need to get in about 8 to 12 repetitions of each exercise. So for example, if the exercise is a squat, you need to do 8 to 12 of them to try and get that adaptation. So okay, we've all this taken care of in your classes. So type, so it could be a class with us. But don't forget things like going up and down stairs would be resistance training, only if it's safe for you to do that. Your sit to stand exercise, which I want everybody practicing a few days a week. And you don't necessarily have to pick up weights. So your own body weight squats or wall press ups or any of the things that you do with us, that's all resistance training. And of course, even in the pool, like pulling, if you're even swimming and you're pulling against the resistance of the water, that's all resistance training. And over time, as you get stronger, of course, you can add in bands and free weights, but you don't need to start there. You start with your own body, get your own body strong first. Right. Lastly, then, your health homework. Here I am, gone into lecture mode again. Right. I want everyone to aim to meet the recommendations. So 2 to 3 times a week. So just basically, if you come to class, you now meet the recommendations. Okay, so try get to your class with us twice a week. I want you to practice your sit to stand. I want you to think about it every day, every single day. And I want you to do, you don't have to do it hard. Don't go hard like when you were testing with us, but give yourself a minute almost every day for sit to stand. I really want you to start thinking about this, but do it nice and relaxed. Okay, there's no need to push yourself hard. You're only practicing. Okay, use the stairs if you can. That's just for people it's appropriate for. Really good for leg strength, up and down steps. Okay. And I did say, I have here, do 20 squats on the day that you're not training with us, but I'm going to add a line to say, either do that or do 20 sit to stands, whichever. Okay, it's the same thing. So that is your homework.